Organizations are living, breathing entities with hidden lives beneath the surface. And what happens in their unconscious minds might be controlling your work life more than you realize.
That's quite a statement. What exactly do you mean by organizations having unconscious minds?
Well, research from the Tavistock Institute shows that just like individuals have hidden motivations driving their behavior, organizations operate on multiple psychological levels that most people never see. Think about a company that keeps reorganizing departments but encounters the same problems. There's something deeper going on there.
So you're saying these patterns aren't just random coincidences?
Not at all. The fascinating thing is, this understanding emerged from treating shell-shocked soldiers after World War I. The Tavistock Clinic founders noticed these psychological patterns weren't just limited to war trauma, they were showing up throughout modern society.
Hmm. How did they make that connection between individual trauma and organizational behavior?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. During World War II, they had 31 staff members join the military in leadership positions. They developed something called command psychiatry, where senior psychiatrists would actively search for potential problems before they became crises.
That must have been quite revolutionary for the 1940s.
Oh, it was. And they didn't stop there. They created whole new fields like social psychiatry for tackling large-scale issues and cultural psychiatry for understanding group mentality. These innovations completely transformed how we think about organizational behavior.
So what happens when organizations ignore these unconscious processes?
That's exactly the key question. When companies focus only on structural changes, new org charts, new processes, without addressing the underlying psychological dynamics, those changes usually fail. It's like treating the symptoms while ignoring the cause.
Well, that explains why so many corporate initiatives seem to fizzle out.
Right. And here's something even more crucial. If you make people aware of these unconscious processes without creating structures to address them, you end up with frustrated employees who can see the problems but feel powerless to fix them.
That must create quite a toxic environment.
It absolutely does. The Tavistock researchers found that organizations often unconsciously create patterns that protect them from facing difficult realities. These patterns can persist for years, even decades, despite surface-level attempts to change them.
This reminds me of how some companies keep hiring the same type of leader, even when it clearly isn't working.
That's a perfect example. And what's particularly fascinating is that these unconscious processes aren't always negative. Sometimes they're actually maintaining stability in ways we don't consciously recognize.
So what's the solution? How do organizations break free from these patterns?
The key insight from Tavistock's work is that you need to combine both structural and psychological approaches. It's not enough to just reorganize or just do team building. You need to address both the visible architecture and the hidden dynamics simultaneously.
That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is, but understanding these dynamics gives us powerful tools for change. For instance, when you see recurring conflicts or persistent problems, you can start looking for the underlying organizational anxieties or unresolved tensions driving them.
This really changes how we might think about workplace issues.
And that's exactly why this research remains so relevant today. Organizations aren't just rational systems. They're complex human networks with both conscious and unconscious dimensions. Understanding this helps us create more effective and healthier workplaces.
So what should our listeners watch for in their own organizations?
Look for patterns that persist despite changes in leadership or structure. Pay attention to the gap between what organizations say they want and what they actually do. These inconsistencies often point to unconscious processes at work.
This has been quite eye-opening.
Indeed, it has. And remember, next time you're frustrated at work, consider that what looks like a simple structural or interpersonal issue might have deeper roots in your organization's unconscious life. Understanding this bigger picture is the first step toward meaningful change. Indeed, it has. And remember, next time you're frustrated at work, consider that what looks like a simple structural or interpersonal issue might have deeper roots in your organization's unconscious life. Understanding this bigger picture is the first step toward meaningful change.